much for being here today.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me. This is quite a delight to get to know you in this way.
Yeah, it's been wonderful to connect so far, and I'm excited for all that might emerge in our collaborations. And was really happy to have you on the Be Love podcast to hear a little more about your story, how love has called you thus far in life. And I'm always interested in exploring how love calls us to expand, and also kind of challenges that we've faced that have gotten in the way of love. And just want to hear your wisdom. So I wonder where you might like to begin.
Well, thank you. The place I like to start is with a ritual action honoring water. So I often start classes and ceremonies this way. So yeah, there you go.
I've got my water with me, so we're ready.
Do you know the source of that water by any chance?
I know it came from my tap,
Wonderful.
so it's from the Boston water system. I don't know much more than that, though.
Okay, well, that's an interesting thread for you to follow where the tap, where it leads back to, because there's a body of water behind that. So this water is Sebago Lake's finest, which is about an hour's drive from Portland. There's over 1,200 miles of pipes that makes this drinking water possible for me to pull it out of the tap, absolutely pristine. And Sebago Lake is one of the cleanest waterways in the country. It's very beautiful, very clear down to a very deep depth. It doesn't need a lot of filtration. It does get water treated before it comes through the pipes, of course, but there's not a lot of intervention that it needs. Unlike many other places in the country, we're not plagued by lead in our pipes and algae growths and things like that for the most part. It's very well tended. So here's the Sebago Lake's finest, my tap water, and to it, I like to add a drop from my collection of Waters of the World. This is a collection I've had going for over 20 years. All the water ceremonies I've been to, the bodies of water that I've visited, people who have visited sacred water, all water is sacred, of course. We're just honoring that fact. People bring me water when they go to the Ganges or when they go to Lourdes. I get little containers of water all the time, and that goes into my matrix of
Yeah.
the world. So honoring that, of course, all waters of the world that I have isolated in this little jar are, in fact, like constantly cycling around us. And I'm just adding a few drops of that to this moment so that we can hold water as sacred and as the source of all life, the source of my love as a water priestess in particular, and also honoring the water that it takes to host this conversation that on camera, 1 hour of on camera computer time
Mm-hmm.
is the equivalent of, say, 12 gallons of water. It takes 12 gallons for every 1 hour. Now, that number is very, very hard to quantify, but it just acknowledges the heavy duty water use that centers, cooling centers, computing centers use massive amounts of water. And it's really important to honor that as we move forward here. So,
Yeah.
this is our matrix. I'll leave this right here.
Well, and an interesting synchronicity. I was born in Sebago, Maine, so the waters of my mother's womb were connected to Sebago Lake. So beautiful,
What? Isn't
beautiful
that
connection.
interesting? Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
And may this conversation be honoring of all the water that it's using, and I trust that it will, in terms of bringing your story into the world and your love. So water is a theme. What drew you to become a water priestess? Maybe that would be a good place to begin.
That's a good place to start. So that will take my story kind of at the beginning of my spiritual formation. I've been a spiritual caregiver with various titles since 1999, 2000, where I was called to the StarHouse in the foothills of the Rocky Mountains above Boulder, Colorado, on the what is it, the 45th parallel, overlooking the Continental Divide. I actually have a picture of it here. It's this beautiful temple that is built and there's a standing stone circle around it, and there in the background is the Continental Divide, the mountains there in the background. And this sacred temple was built really as a place to have ritual theater and ways to celebrate heaven and earth. And it has evolved over the last 35 years into a very well sourced, well resourced in the community sacred ground for earth, water celebrations, all the seasonal and celestial celebrations, new moons, full moons, solstices, equinoxes, cross quarters, and then a gathering place for many kinds of teachers from all faiths, all traditions from around the world. It's a gathering place. Like Boulder, Colorado is a gathering place for lots of spiritual teachings. And the StarHouse is one of the focal points, particularly for earth spirit and star wisdom. So the StarHouse hosted me and a group of other women in a mystery school from 2000 to 2002. It was called the Path of the Ceremonial Arts. And we learned how to hold a sacred container, how to hold a safe, sacred container, how to create sacred space, and how to create a very inviting container, not only for the humans to be in, but also how to call in the divine and to call in the earth's wisdom and the body's wisdom. And how do you create different activities and practices? How do you pull upon all the world practices in order to have an embodied experience of the divine, a direct experience, not just knowing with the mind through study, but having continual rhythmic practices, following the seasons, following the rhythm of the year, and doing this in joy and celebration and love with each other. And staying in community, even when it gets tough. And boy, does it get tough sometimes. I'm sure you know.
Yes.
So that was my start, spiritual formation as a priestess, a temple priestess, and then a water priestess in particular was what I was called to do. And after I completed the path of the ceremonial arts, we had all these newly minted priestesses just itching to run programs. So I stayed for another couple of years to get the Transdenominational Minister training with the team of 10 ministers there, the ministerial body, of which I'm still a part and still in close contact with. And then we just ran programs. And for 7 years, I led a very mythic life, leading public and private ceremonies for all the seasonal and celestial celebrations. So after I left Colorado, I took those teachings down off the mountain across, like from Iowa to Pennsylvania to here in Maine. Along the way, translating the language that I learned at the StarHouse, how to speak to spirit up on the mountain in Boulder is very different of how it sounds in Iowa and in central Pennsylvania and the Appalachian Valley, and then here in Maine and New England. There's a translation process that has to happen with the language. So that's the very short story of how I landed here at the Portland New Church, bringing ceremony and seasonal and celestial celebrations to this community.
Well, and there's again another parallel because those were the same years that I was in seminary in Berkeley. And I feel like there's such a resonance between us right now because I was studying the theology, the Swedenborgian theology. Certainly we learned about presiding at sacraments, and it was a very interesting time to be in seminary because the message was, here's the tradition, it's imploding and we don't know what's next, but we'll teach you what it was. And then not a lot of and then there were certainly a lot of interesting people in Berkeley doing new things, and I learned a lot about new possibilities. And anyway, and yet I think my whole journey in ministry since then has been one of wanting to be more embodied. And so I feel like that's so powerful that was your grounding at the beginning, was this how to embody spirit into life, which for me really is at the heart of the Swedenborgian message. It's the message Swedenborg was telling us, that worship was all of life, and yet he just told it to us in some books. So it was an disembodied telling kind of a thing. And he wasn't actually yet trying to create community. He was just sharing his mystical experiences, which is beautiful. And yet the effort of building community, of embodying spirit, of honoring the cycles of life, he didn't address that. That's that's another realm, and it does feel like it's it's a feminine realm on some level. Do you see? I mean, it sounds like you were studying with women. How do you honor the masculine and the feminine, or how do you understand that
Mm.
those elements of embodying spirit?
You've put your finger on the heart of the matter, the mater, the mother. The mother, the great mother, is very central to what I was learning at the StarHouse. The great mother, as the body of the earth, as Gaia, was very foundational and is very foundational to my practices and my belief system, as is the pre-Christian Gnostic esoteric traditions. So the Christos and Sophia as a creation story, and the Sophia embodying the feminine principle, and how the creativity of the Christos Sophia gave rise to the universe and the planets and all beings and the conditions from which life can spring. So at the StarHouse in the temple, we had very regular encounters with the divine feminine in ritual theater practices. So taking, let's say, the Black Madonna, she was very near and dear to us. And along with like all the iterations of Mary, of Magdalene, of the Virgin of Guadalupe, and the Sophia, all of these aspects of the Great Mother with the threads of Christianity were woven through there, as well as many other world traditions. But specifically, the Mother Mary was very holy to us and sacred, and she would be drawn down through story and through enactments. And we would have direct experience of Mary being amongst us while we're wearing our blue veils and carrying our bowls of water. And being outside around Mary's well. There is a well there on the StarHouse property that we got to interact with in these ritual ways. Lots of anointing. And after my training was complete with the ceremonial arts program, I then went on with the journey of the feminine with my colleague, Kate Carbone, who is also a priestess. And she and I and others took different archetypes. When I say archetypes, I don't mean like flat 2-dimensional on a page, although that's how they came to us through Merlin Stone's ancient mirrors of womanhood, that she collected stories of goddesses from around the world, and some of them are fully kept stories of goddesses that are very much alive and well today, like Isis and Lakshmi and the Virgin of Guadalupe. And then there were also others in there that are just faint whispers of a poem, a fragment of a story that she was able to put down on paper, and we can follow our intuition to help breathe more life into Huitaka of Colombia. So, and at that particular time in the early to mid 2000s, our positionality was such that we're 2/3 white women of a certain privilege coming together and doing this work. And while we were very careful about not decontextualizing the goddess and doing the best we knew how to do to honor the fullness of her, we were also in that kind of second, third wave of feminism that did not yet have the full language that we do now surrounding, or at least I should say, I did not yet have the full language around cultural appropriation and whether or not we should be calling upon the Orishas, Great Mother Oya. What business do we have to do that? So that I mentioned that because that has been so formative to be a part of that conversation and doing work with the sacred feminine. And while I certainly don't feel like I'm perfect in relaying this and being as sensitive as I can, there's still a lot of room to grow and a lot more to learn about honoring just how tied to land that these goddesses and gods are.
Yeah. Yeah. So important. Well, and to walk that, to hold both feels so important. To hold I'm not sure that this is right, but I also feel this longing. And it makes me think of, I often feel kind of disembodied from the land. Like I'm kind of a whitewashed woman without a lot of connection to any particular cultural tradition, except the cultural tradition of kind of patriarchal Christianity. And so there is like, well, does that mean that's the only one I get to draw on? There has to be more. And it feels like, it sounds like it's a process of, I imagine it's similar to what I would have to go through to find where my water comes from, to kind of reconnect those roots. Because I'm sure I do have roots somewhere to some indigenous people somewhere on the planet. But that's that's a feels like it's necessary work right now, and it's difficult. I like that you're holding that tension. Yeah. We need people to hold and live in that tension.
Yeah, there are real challenges to it. You also asked about the divine masculine.
Yeah.
So again, back at the StarHouse, we had our women's groups very alive and well and thriving and vibrant, and we did a lot. Mm-hmm. Of classes and celebrations honoring the divine feminine, and our men nearby, were like, well, what about us? Like, where do we get to come in? So we found ways to bring them into the ceremony and into the ritual of what we're doing. But so much of the women's mysteries, and at that particular time, pre Me Too, we're awakening the divine feminine within ourselves and healing from the toxicity of patriarchy, and that is still being very new to us at that particular time. So I would say now, looking back, where my husband, Andy MacDonald, he's a PhD in French theater, teaches up at Bowdoin College. He and I have been teaching on the divine feminine, divine masculine since 2004, I think is when we started that. And we just did a workshop, an 8-hour workshop for the Chime students, the Chaplaincy Institute of Maine. They do a unit on the divine masculine, divine feminine. It's actually called Goddess, God, and Godex, because we also bring in, we used to call it both and neither, and now Godex is the evolution of the term that honors the LGBTQIA plus experience and finding ways to really honor the liminal being of the Godex, which has been really, really delightful for me, especially being the mother of a trans teen. This is very near and dear to me, to find ways to honor just the beautiful array of human expression of the divine. It's very, very important.
So important.
Yeah. If I can circle back around to that little pin, and that I've got something to share with you about that in a few minutes. So lifting up the divine masculine, from the way that I was taught, is very much like the women initiate the men. And this is in neo-pagan, Native American, different earth spirit traditions, without getting into particulars. Like, it's part of the tradition that the men revere the divine feminine, and the divine masculine can be the great mother's consort. There's all different ways of relating there, and being in conversation with the divine masculine as a way that I relate to the divine feminine in a certain way, and to relate to the divine masculine in that way as well, is, I don't know that I really have words to express it, because it's a practice. It's ineffable. All of this is ineffable. And here I am,
yes.
trying
we're just
have some words and trying to be understood. It's like, this is impossible, but we're trying, right?
Yeah.
Trying to be understood. But there are ways and practices of lifting up both to be in sacred partnership, like Rianne Eisler has taught us in The Chalice and the Blade, of that going from the dominator paradigm to the partnership paradigm. And how do we do that? And there are lovely embodiment practices, ritual theater practices, that allow us to act out the colonizer, the dominator postures, and then be transformed into more partnership without words. This is again the ritual theater enactments of these, and they're extremely powerful, because it bypasses all the story and just goes straight to the body, and the body knows. The body has lived through it.
It's been hugely important to my own growth lately, of recognizing my kind of inner dictator and the colonizer within, and then feeling that partnership. And I went through that similar kind of experience of needing the divine feminine, calling on the divine, that yes, you can rest. Yes, you can receive. Yes, you can open. Yes, you can flow. And only recently started to go, I guess maybe the divine masculine can come in now too. And we can make some things happen, and and yet there seems to be this real rebalancing that's been deeply needed, and I think still is needed, of the feminine energy that was just really not given much love for quite a few centuries now, and I see that playing out within the Swedenborgian tradition, where I think he's pointing to something beautiful. He's pointing to a equality of the sexes. He's pointing to a deep place of embodiment, and he's only pointing. So whenever we point, we just get so interested in that finger, and we just what is it that moves us from the pointing to the being is really a very live question for me.
It is.
And I guess in that question, what I've learned of you so far, it feels like this embodying of ritual. Like, is that your primary passion? Is that's your jam? Like, that's your means of bridging the pointing and the being? What is it about ritual and holding space in ritual for you?
It's playful.
Yeah.
It's sacred play, and people can really connect to it. People are so hungry to feel alive and feel their body and feel their breath and have opportunities in community to have an experience, not just the head. And I don't mean to be reductive or in any way disrespectful for pulpit and pew. It is wonderful to receive the spiritual sustenance of the preacher and the pastor who has the divine word. I personally don't feel like my gift is in the gab.
Yeah.
My gift is in creating a really safe space. I hope, from what I've heard, I can create a safe container for people to come in and take a risk. And I ask people to be a participant. We sit in a circle. There's no place to hide in a circle. Although, of course, I absolutely do create a space for the sacred witness for someone who's not ready to raise their voice or move their body or is not comfortable with that. Please sit and be a sacred witness, or just dance with your thumb, or just dance with your eyes. That's brilliant. And there is space for that. And then people who feel like they're ready to get up and move. I'm capable of ecstasy, of ecstasis, of like dancing with the divine and having my own direct experience of the divine. It's Gnosticism. Of course I can have my own experience of the divine. I am divine.
Where else would we experience the divine? Where else would it happen? Yeah.
Yeah. And I have had the great privilege of collecting songs, games, stories, tools, techniques, practices. My whole life, I have followed this thread of playfulness, and I have to kind of lean in here and tell you a little bit of, here's one of the things about me that I don't actually like to get out.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm going to say a word here, and just try to just hold it like a delicate egg. Okay. And the word is clown, sacred clown. Here in Stephen King country, I have to kind of say that word in a whisper,
Yes, Mainers are very afraid of clowns.
And I'm not talking full white face Barnum and Bailey American clown. I'm talking about something that is sourced much more deeply. And I first came to clown at the StarHouse, because the StarHouse was so etherically pure, and Anastasia Nutt is an absolute perfect vessel for star wisdom to come through. Bright, shiny, and she can bring the stars down into my body where I can feel it. And I'm moved to tears just thinking about her and her way of bringing the stars, and David Tressimer bringing the planets, and Leela Tressimer bringing the whole cosmos into the StarHouse, into the temple, and into my being, and having embodiment practices of those. Phenomenal. But me, I'm kind of messy. I'm kind of, I'm contrary to the core. So of course, whenever that pure etheric white light is coming through, I have to kind of poke at it, because it's I'm a mess, and at that time in my late 20s, I was a hot mess. So it's I would fall and crash and break and spoof and do all those things because we needed a fool. Yes. We need a holy fool to give permission, that vulnerability of failure. And that is my mission as a clown, is to just give permission to fail, and fail big.
Yes.
That's the fool creates the worlds.
My
trickster
goodness.
creates the world. It's so true. And I have a very alive, lively, beautiful practice with Barnaby King, who is a clown czar
Hmm.
online. He runs a clown empire. I mean, he would laugh to hear me say it. But I have constant practice with clown because it's difficult. It's a really hard practice to be embodied in my tender emotions and to stay connected with the people in the room with me. And I always start off my ceremonies. I say always. I don't always. I aspire to always start off in ceremony with this playful making fun of myself, making fun of whatever I can to just pierce that bubble of preciousness that plagues so much ceremony. It's stifling. And if we can just all kind of take a laugh, have a laugh, take a breath, and just sit back, and everybody's just more relaxed and
Yes.
have more
Amen.
capacity for breath and for belly and for the messiness of it all. If I
Yeah,
can.
you and I are in a similar we're in a similar journey right now for sure. I think there's something so holy about the clown and the messy and the making room. It's like, how are we going to break? If life is about transformation, what causes transformation more than chaos? Then what allows us to kind of come out of our shells? And I like that you witness that even in ceremonial spaces of the kind of it's almost too pure. And sometimes if it's so pure, what does the messy broken person over there have to do with that purity? How could they even possibly receive it but through a stumbling fool who's willing to fail in the face of that beauty?
Mhm,
That's
mhm.
beautiful. And
Yeah.
that's always been your role, the clown? Is that like in you from the beginning?
Yeah, I guess in the spiritual formation, it was there early on in response
Yeah.
to the perfection.
Yeah.
And my mentor, Leela Sophia Tresimer, saw my gift there, and
Yeah.
she really nurtured that. And I have tried to shake off the clown for years, and it won't be shaken off. It's not to be denied. It keeps coming through loud and clear. So now I'm embracing it, and it's really one of the saving graces of my life and of these days and times because it keeps my sense of humor intact. It keeps my mental hygiene better, like the when I can see all sides of myself and laugh at the beauty of my own ridiculousness. Like I'm quoting Richard Poroshenko there and my teacher Sue Morrison, that is the essence of clown. When I can put on the smallest mask of all, the teeniest tiniest red nose, that honors all of that beauty.
Yeah. Well, and it feels like it's such an important counterpoint to ceremony, because I do think we think of ceremony. You got to, and I mean, there's really a lot of similarity, ceremony or going to church, like put on our nice outfit, and so how to treat it as this sacred thing where we do dress up or we do embody a role where we do take it seriously, and we welcome our full selves. So we're not, because I think the only way to do that is to leave some parts of ourselves behind to be able to sit there in perfection. But the ideal, the goal is to bring our whole selves, our whole being into the experience. And humor, I'm excited to experience ritual with you and see how you hold these two, because it's certainly shown up in my ministry of wanting there to be fluidity, but then people want things to go a certain way. And maybe this is a good interlude into the challenges of holding ceremony in space. What are there any things you might share about how you hold that tension, and what kind of maybe what gets in the way of it all working, and what helps?
Mm, yeah, thank you for that question. Hmm. Yeah, I hold a regular ceremony, the Cosmic Mass, based on creation spirituality. Reverend Dr. Matthew Fox, his creation spirituality. So here at the Portland New Church, we once a month come together in the Cosmic Mass, and me and my ritual partner Magnus de Rudlin, who's a Druid priest, and the band Todd Glacy and his drummers do this rhythmic ceremony. And I notice that I'm a parent of a teen, and I'm riffing on a recent experience that when my teen said that they were going to come to the ceremony and they didn't come, for example, when they didn't actually come through the door, and I am like walking right out I'm on. And at the same moment that I'm realizing that they're not there and I'm having that full body mama bear, like, and also just really sad, really disappointed, tears, all that, and just having to like, okay, I'm just going to compartmentalize that and go on. But I lost my funny, my little twinkle and spark. It was gone. And I wasn't able to like stamp it back in for the whole ceremony. And I was just off and a little drained. And the ceremony was exquisite. My team it was just excellent. What we offered was very satisfying on a lot of different levels. We went underground and recreated a basement classroom and made it into a Paleolithic cave with a 20-foot painting and shadow puppets and hand like paint natural pigments, paint hands on drumming, shamanic drumming, journey work, honoring the original artists of those Paleolithic cave paintings. Oh, it was just absolutely dreamy. We walked the labyrinth beforehand. It was Beltane, so emergence is the theme. So thank goodness that we had so many wonderful things to hang on, and we didn't rely on my charisma and my funny. That thank goodness that we have this model that is community supported. And the model of the cosmic mass is in the via positiva, via negativa, via creativa, via transformativa, this whole template. I'm going to be a little mechanistic here. It's an engine, it's a battery, it drives itself and gives lots of gives the whole congregation opportunities to bring their wisdom into the container. This is not like a one-way delivery system. We're not entertaining people. We're there to give the container lots of opportunities for participation. So I trust the circle so much that I can be having my mom internal devastation, whatever, and I'll come up next time. Mm-hmm. Because we are on a regular rhythmic practice. I'll have many more opportunities to try and probably to fail. Yeah. And I'm okay with that. In the moment, it's not what I wanted to happen, but there's space for me to do that. And I'm so blessed to be in a community and to have this practice where there's just so many built-in fail-safes. It's not all about me. I'm not the charismatic leader who has to carry the whole thing on myself.
That's the old paradigm. That's not, yeah, we don't want that anymore. That feels really resonant to me. The two things, the having the team, so you're not the only one needing to carry the energy of the room, and having the cooperation of the community gathered, but then also having the rhythm of this isn't the last chance I'll ever have to have this moment. It's going to happen again. And I do see that as a beautiful part of spiritual community. And a lot of what I think I'm trying to create with my Be Loved, Be Honest, Be Useful gatherings is a sharing of the holding of the load. It's not realistic for one person to always hold the load and have the wisdom, and I think it's disempowering to the people gathered for them to always be looking to one person to hold the load. It's not really conducive to our transformation. And I love the way I missed this when you said it earlier, that part of what you're doing is inviting people to take a risk, which I love. I love that aspect of what you're offering, because I do think some of the older models of church, they're not very risky. You can hide in the back, you can come and go. You're not. And some people need that. I like that you make some space for lurkers. It takes time to be willing to take a risk. And I think to be a spiritual leader, to be spiritual community, we want to be encouraging risk-taking. Like, this is a bold invitation to be loving in the world, and it's not how we usually operate. And so it will require that vulnerability and that risk-taking. And I'm really looking for how to do that more, how to make that more integral to the efforts of being church, being spiritual community. And it's not really why most people joined the church before. I think they joined to be safe and to feel comfortable and to feel comforted. Luckily, that's not necessarily true anymore. And I think that's part of the tension we're living in right now. How to belong and to risk. What has helped you to take risks in your life?
I'm a natural.
You're a natural.
I'm a natural risk taker. Yeah. My husband is not. So I really feel my I take risks.
And how does that work in the marriage? That's very, because actually I'm married to a not so risk taker as well. So what is that? That seems like a risk in itself, to have these different energies coexist.
Yeah. I think I I frustrate him from time to time,
Yeah.
and I get myself into hot water more than like it. That drives him completely insane. That I get into trouble from time to time, you know, with my boldness, and I feel like in my middle age, I'm much more aware of my tendency to be a bull in a china shop. So I can very much reel that back in. I'm not nearly as obnoxious as I used to be. I hope. Probably some people still find me a little obnoxious, but I try to be exquisitely sensitive to that, especially in ceremony, and acknowledge the discomfort of being confronted with the things that I'm proposing to people. And it's not that they're necessarily all that outlandish. It's dancing together, it's singing together, or singing, chanting syllables, or it's speaking gibberish. That's a big one. Gibberish is very cathartic. It's clown practice, and it's able to express and release a lot of emotion, a lot of energy without any story attached. And the body really appreciates that. Very effective. And it's risky for New Englanders to step out and be the tallest blade, or be the tallest nail, or whatever it is that gets whacked with a hammer or cut with the lawnmower or whatever. People want to.
It's very confronting to our primary formation, which is fit in and be the best and do it the right way. So I can see why that would be difficult, and also essential, like really useful to our spiritual growth, to challenge, push those edges, and feel safe enough to do things differently.
Yeah, and play. It's high play, high holy play, and we know how to do it. We just have to uncover the layers of accretions that we've accumulated over the years, and all the messages that accumulate and weigh us down and burden us with this heavy mantle of adulthood that's just an illusion. And we just have to, just clear it off every now and then.
You make it sound very easy.
I know.
But that's part of what the clown does, right? You just have to you just
Yeah, just give permission, and baby steps too. It's a like that. There's sharp, crisp time boundaries are very helpful. That people know that they're in it for 90 minutes, and there's going to be snacks at the end, so that's good. That helps.
Yeah, yeah, interesting. Oh, I'm very drawn to that, and I think for my own journey, I want to be more playful. I realize that I've kind of stifled myself for a good long while, trying to fill this role in the right way and to embody it and all of that.
Yeah, it
And
is
yet
a role.
it does feel like play, though, and that spirit of play is where the creation can emerge, and the new things can emerge. And we play in different ways. People play in different ways. How does that show up in your journey of leading ceremony or just life? Do you feel like you're inviting people to a particular way of playing, and so those who are wanting that or needing that will come? Do you feel like you enter spaces where other people want to play differently than you want to play? I mean, I don't know. How do we navigate playing together?
Good question.
And maybe what helps and what gets in the way?
Yeah. Um, I'm part of the Portland Community Dance here in Portland. Has got an absolutely stunning bi-monthly practice where we do ecstatic dance together. There's a DJ and this community. I've been dancing with them for 9 years, ever since I got to Maine, and it's a format I'm very familiar with. And it's very, very playful.
Yeah.
There's no talking on the dance floor. It's all dance.
Yeah.
So that informs just my physical being of just unleashing the play. And in ceremony, or in the classroom when I teach, I love vectors, and I teach on this. Vectors are different ways. Like, I have a sacred geometric framework that I embody. I was trained at the StarHouse. The StarHouse was a star map, and we really worked the movement of the planets around each other, because it's very, very rhythmic, and we are attuned to that rhythm. All these geometries and different ways of encountering ourselves in space and other people in space. This gives me, it's like facets of a jewel, like a mirrors, all these different ways of glimpsing myself, like the divine feminine. The divine feminine is a giant jewel with all these facets, all these different ways of being that the stories of the divine feminine have held for us, so we know how to be. So providing these facets, these vectors, these ways of connecting and offering a lot of choices. Some people, I can't sing.
Yeah.
Okay, then let's chant.
Yeah.
Okay, let's chant in not English. Okay, that's another vector. When we raise our voices together in song, that is a geometry where we are all connected in vibration. There is a morphic field that resonates with that. There's a vector when we go out into nature and we observe the geometry of flowers that resonates with us, the way that a dandelion is constructed and what a dandelion, don't even get me started about dandelions, Reverend Sage Cole, because I am all about the dandelion. So notice how I just had to work it into the conversation. That the plant beings, the animal beings, the winged ones, the four-leggeds, the creepy crawlies, the wind, the stars, the lightning, everything provides us vectors to connect to the all that is and to ourselves and to each other. And I try to pack in as many vectors, and I see them as vectors that, mirroring practices and breath practices. These are ways for us to inspire and expire together. Expansion and contraction. These are ways that we can all connect, and we begin to entrain as a ceremonial body, and we transmit the body's wisdom wordlessly to each other, and that raises everybody's vibration, and we point it towards joy. We grieve. The via negativa is about grief and is about silence, and we have grief practices. We lament together. We sing our heartbreak together, and we work that in ecstatic dance. We bring in puppets. We have 4 giant puppets in the room that Magnus de Rudlin has made, and they change masks every month that he makes them. So huge artistry. I'm a puppeteer. I do shadow puppets. I have a shadow puppet show about eels because the American eel is incredible. It's an incredible being and local. It's one of the locals, and so great to bring in the Council of All Beings. We're leading a mask workshop right now so we can build a rapid response Council of All Beings team so we can show up at, town halls and speak for the salmon and speak for the eel and speak for the birch trees and speak for the eelgrass, speak for those horseshoe crabs, because my goddess, do they need a human voice behind them, those horseshoe crabs. They got it rough. That's what we do in ceremony, is we take it all the way out to awe and gratitude, and we bring it to grief and silence, and we bring it out to creativity and bring it out to the transformativa, which is where everybody gets to speak.
It's very powerful. It's so powerful. And I love the way that it feels like there is a holding of difference while also a naming of a holding of a process. So we're inviting people through a process while also allowing them to engage as they will. And I think there's something with my spiritual journey, I've often been like, God is everything, so we don't have to do anything. Like, we just be who we are. And there's always sort of that temptation of like, why do we need to do anything but just drink water and eat? And it's sort of like, well, maybe if we were totally sensing that everything was sacred every moment, then we wouldn't have to do anything. And yet we don't sense that. We're disconnected from that, and ritual can help to light that connection again. So it feels very powerful, the model of worship that you lead. And as I've shared, I did get to go to one in Berkeley with Matthew Fox. And I do think there's something about embodying transformation, because that's what spirituality is about, is all the stages of it. And in some ways that transformation is a little bit embodied in kind of traditional Christian models, but it's limited. And certainly over time, it's become kind of all about the sermon and the sharing of the wisdom, which, as we're discussing, has its limits, because it's not just about understanding in our brains, but embodying and knowing in our whole souls.
Yeah.
It's good stuff that you're doing.
Thanks. Thank you. Yeah. I'm a body worker, so I've been practicing integrative massage for 27 years. That's my bread and butter. And I'm constantly astonished with what the body knows. The body wants to be well. It wants to be in homeostasis. It knows how to do it. It knows how to heal. And you just have to give it a little bit of space. Same thing in ceremony. Give a space for people to come in and have an experience. Don't force anything.
Right.
You can, make it fun, give good snacks, and see what happens.
See what happens. Well, I'm excited to see what will be happening in the next chapters for you at the Portland New Church, and how we might collaborate, and just holding lightly. I don't know. That feels like the theme of this conversation, is like boldly but lightly. Like there's, if it feels like there's so much boldness in what you are creating and bringing and play, but it's like a playful boldness that feels light and easy. And I'm sure it's not always easy, but just anyway, it feels very good, very, very inspiring, and I think is really needed right now in our Swedenborgian community in particular, because I think we have this bold vision of this new world, of this new paradigm of life where we're all in the city together and we're free. And that's going to require us to know who we are and to be there fully. And Swedenborg certainly wasn't like, you got to do anything any particular way. So we're all kind of making this up. And it's good to have more people making cool things up.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I feel like the sky's the limit, and I really feel like the new paradigm that he was pointing to was just like this big, beautiful, bold world with just more diversity than we were even conscious of is possible yet, and that's like
Yes.
sort of just getting started.
Yeah, I agree. I did a puppet. Well, I made a mask of Swedenborg and a mask of Matthew Fox, and had a service where I was invited to bring a conversation between Matthew Fox and Swedenborg, but I wanted to do an embodiment practice. So we had masks and read 3 different scenarios where they're having a conversation with each other so that I could kind of apprehend Swedenborg more through Matthew Fox, because I feel like Matthew Fox and Swedenborg, they would have been like buddies.
They probably
Like,
would have been buddies. Yeah.
they would have been like writing each other's forewords of each other's books.
Yes.
For sure.
Yeah.
And Matthew Fox spoke at a Swedenborgian conference, and I dug that up. I, wrote the mothership Swedenborgian, and they dug that transcript up for me, and that's what I based this show on. And I don't know where I was going with that. Just in like a sense of wrapping up and newness, and how the cosmic mass template, ceremonial template, is it's so vital, and he has very graciously given us permission to use this template and in this sacred exploration. So it's this ongoing
creative journey. One of the next phases for us in the collaborative work is a series on the creation story. So I'm very curious about bringing that process of spiritual transformation into conversation with the cosmic mass, and who knows what we'll talk more.
Love that.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Circe. Any closing thoughts on love, the call to love?
Yeah, I want to circle back around to a little pin that I put into the goddess. So there's one pin, and then closing with the water again.
Great.
So if you don't mind 2 beats.
No, I love that.
All right. So I wrote a hymn to the goddess, and it came through like right after I was in a clown class, and I was writing a class for the goddess, goddess. And I just wanted to share it with you because it really sums up my thoughts and feelings about trans beings, the both and the neither, the sacred in between, the liminal beings. And I'd love to read that to you if I may.
Please.
So this is the hymn to the goddess. Goddess, O boundless, transcendent goddess, glorious bearer of all spectrums and in-betweens, you who shatter binaries like constellations exploding into infinite stars, reveal to us the sacred art of fluidity, the cosmic dance that defies boundaries and celebrates becoming. Goddess of paradox, teach us to honor the sacred chaos of evolving identities. May we find beauty in transformations, turning dysphoria into hymns of self-discovery. You, the architect of liberation, guide us to weave ourselves anew each day, unraveling the threads of rigid expectations to craft tapestries as vivid as the aurora's glow. Bless us all with the courage to be our truest selves, even when the world insists on fitting us into narrow molds. O divine shapeshifter, glorious in your multiplicity, grant us your limitless grace so we may rise with a ferocity that says, we are here, unapologetic and eternal.
Beautiful. Oh my goodness. Got goosebumps.
Yeah. So taking your cup of water, your Boston water, taking my Sebago Lake water with the waters of the world, I'm going to anoint myself in honoring the inspiration of the divine and the inspiration of talking with you, this once in a lifetime conversation that you and I had today. And I'm also going to reach out and I'm going to touch you with some water. Oh, thank you.
I'll do to you as well.
Right there. How lovely. Thank you. Anointing us with water so that we may just be in the grace of the flow. So thank you for calling me here today, Sage Cole.
And I love it when we both are in the same